everybody, welcome back. Today is Friday, October 12th, episode 5. Welcome to my life. Since I still don't know if I consider this podcast or a vlog, I'm not sure whether to say welcome to Amnicon Studio or not, but welcome to my life. It's good to have you here. Apple cider in a cup that I bought, oh boy, many years ago when I was visiting my sister-in-law down in Ripon. More than 15 years ago, and it's still here. I haven't broke it yet. They don't make them like they used to. Let's see, sun. First real sun in about a week. The weather has been horrible. We've had a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of gray skies, and cold temperatures. Well, we can blather about that later. I'm not sure if I will go following my notes, but I am down to only one page this week, so let's see if I can make it a little bit faster than what I've done in the past. Okay, I am going to say I have nothing on the needles right now because I have a whole bunch of finished objects. And I just realized I left one over by the wood stove still, but I will pause and get that one in just a little bit. Vanilla socks. The pair is done. Ta-da! Knit up 64 stitches. Knit in Knit Picks Felice yarn in the Countess colorway, which is purples. Regular gusset heel that I may start making socks with this kind of heel again rather than doing the afterthought heel. Even though it's so easy to make these socks just by sticking a thread in where I want the heels and then doing it later. These fit my foot so much better. So much better. Knit on, let's see, US 1s, 2.5 millimeters. And then last Saturday, I cast off my baby surprise jacket. And I love it. I think it's adorable. I also think it is maybe more suited to a boy than a girl, like I originally thought this yarn would go for. I didn't have any real cute buttons in my button jar, unfortunately, so I grabbed 5 matching white ones and sewed those on. This is the yarn I have left. It's probably half the ball. So I am going to use this to make another baby surprise jacket at some point down the road. And I think this one will definitely look more like a girl's jacket than what I thought it was going to start out with. The yarn is Lion Brand Mandala in the Gnome colorway. I knit it on US 5s, which is 3.75 millimeters. And I am going to hit stop so I can go get the other thing. Okay, this I washed and blocked this morning and then set it by the wood stove so it would dry really quick. Another baby hat. Oh, okay, I'll cut that off later. I bound off on this last night and decided to wash and block it before sharing it on here. And I forgot. Blocking is magic. Blocking is truly magic because this looks so much better than it did this morning before I threw it in the wash. The pattern is something I found on somewhere on the internet. I don't remember the blog name that it came from, but it was a version of the umbilical cord baby hat. Knit on size US 2s. I don't know the millimeter size. If you recognize the yarn colors, it's because I used the leftovers from this, the Knit Pig Felice and the Countess colorway. And I use this, or I knit this using Knit Pick circular needles. And when I first learned to knit and I bought the set of interchangeable needles from Knit Picks, I loved those needles. And then about 5 years ago, I invested in a set of Chalgu knitting needles. I'm not sure if I said that right, and it is like night and day, and I've rarely used any other knitting needle other than those. But I wanted to try making this hat on circulars, and I knew I had two. I've got Knit Pick circulars from size 1 to 3, I think, although I don't use the 2s and the 3s very often, but I wanted to have them on hand for any time I needed to use them. And I decided to use those ones on this. And the join on the needle to the cable stinks. My yarn kept getting stuck on the join, and it was not as smooth as what I would have liked it to have been, so I kind of had to power through that. But oh man, I don't know. For as little as I use that size needle, I'm not sure if it's worth investing in Chalgus for that. Although if I keep making these, maybe it'd be worth it. I don't know. I decided that I want to make baby hats with all my scrap sock yarns. I don't have any place in mind yet that I want to donate these to. I still gotta look around because I don't know anybody that's having babies, which is kind of funny that now I want to knit baby stuff, but I will find a place and those will have a good home and life will be good. So, like I said, nothing on the needles. I'm kind of, I don't feel an urgent need to knit anything yet, although I kind of have this burning urge to knit pumpkin dishcloth, and this is from the Knit Picks website. And you would think for all the stuff that I have mentioned in the last several weeks, it inevitably has Knit Picks in it, so I'm not a fangirl, I just like free stuff. And reasonably affordable yarns for certain things because I have a budget, and as much as I love all the indie dyed stuff, I can't afford to knit with it all the time, which is a drag because I know a lot of talented people who dye yarn for a living, but they understand. Let's see. So yeah, no spinning this week. I just have not been in the mood for it. And I know Spinzilla happened recently, and I thought, well, this might be the thing to get me back into it, but no, it started feeling like a job, so I stopped. Let's see, next up, books. I finally finished Crossing to Safety by Wallace Stegner, and it ended like I thought it would. Charity, the wife of the couple with money, developed cancer, and everybody was gathering around. And I know in the last video I was not really feeling the love for this book, and I still don't. But I think maybe I wasn't being fair to it last time. And I don't have any notes, so I'm kind of rambling here, but they talked about like the beginning of their relationship, a little bit after the friendship started, and then there was this huge span of time that was kind of left out, and then it came back to, I'm guessing their late 50s, early 60s, I'm not sure, where they get back together. wish I could say it was to celebrate Charity's life, but it wasn't really. It was kind of like she commanded that everybody in the family come and celebrate her birthday and have a picnic and just see everybody one last time. I guess where I wasn't feeling very fair to Charity is because for as much as she kind of henpecked her husband and browbeat him, her intentions were always good, which sounds awful, but she's always thinking of other people and how to make their lives better and easier, and uh, she was always thinking of everybody else before thinking of herself. And that's an admirable quality, but I suppose it's all in how you go about with it. Because even to the end, she was still thinking about her husband. And she didn't want her husband to see her pass away. So she had decided that she was, at one point during this gathering, everybody was going to be happy and having fun, getting along and eating good food and everything. And she was just going to slip away. Well, when it was mentioned, I thought she meant like metaphorically. She was just gonna, go pass away into the afterlife, just quietly and calmly and, not being a burden on anybody else. No, she meant really slip away. She didn't want her husband to see her die. She didn't want to burden anybody with her death. She wanted to control her death. And she finally said to her husband that, no, I don't want you to go with me. She was going to like a nursing home or convalescent place. I'm not sure what they would have called it back then, but she left to die. And she didn't want her husband to come with because she had to be strong for him, I think is what she said. And she's always had to be strong for him because he could never do things on his own or be strong enough. And I thought that was kind of a terrible thing to say to him when she's dying and she's frustrated and mad and she's ordering him around still. And then the moment came where, okay, it's time, and she wanted her best friend to go with her, the nurse to go with her, and be with her while she got set up at this place to die. And her husband couldn't handle it, and he walked off and disappeared. And the narrator, Larry, was trying to find him and couldn't find him. And at the same time, he didn't want to disturb anybody who was enjoying this picnic and let anybody know that Charity had just slipped off. So meanwhile, then when Larry's wife comes back, and she said that on the drive to the place, Charity cried and wept and bawled and was so sad. And I thought, this is ridiculous. She should have let him come with her, let him have this last time. But it didn't happen. And then I'm flipping through the book right now because, let's see. There was a part that kind of hit me, and I'm trying to find it real quick without stopping and scrolling through. Maybe I'm not going to find it. But it turned into Larry, the narrator. He started thinking, deep thoughts. And he was thinking that, if things had happened in his life differently, like his wife, who I had mentioned, had a really rough childbirth and then 6 months later or so developed polio. And he said, what if she had died during childbirth? Which was more common back then, although it still occasionally happens nowadays, but not as much thanks to modern medicine. But he said, would I be able to survive her? And I thought that was really deep, and it's something I hadn't given any thought to before, because I don't think about end of life issues much, but to see the contrast between the two couples was enough I thought about this off and on for the few days afterwards, that, would you be strong enough to survive the passing of your partner? Well, apparently Charity didn't think her husband would be able to, and that's why she sent him off. And somebody had said that Larry would have been strong enough to, because he was made out of different stuff than his best friend. And it was quite the ending, I guess. I just oh yeah, and then Charity, she had left a list of women that she approved of for her husband to marry after she died. She was planning his life right up to the very end. And yeah, I don't have much to say about that one. But if I find the quote or where I'm looking for, I will take a picture of that and post it up on the blog. Because I have a few different spots that I had marked for quotes, but then I got to a certain point and I just wanted to be done with this book. But let's see. The one that kind of made me really chuckle, and this was when during the honeymoon for Sid and Charity, and at one point her Charity had her sister Comfort come on the honeymoon, because they honeymooned over in Europe for like 6 months, because that's what you could do back then, and you had a lot of money. So let's see. The moral, Comfort says, is not to accept an invitation to any honeymoon except your own. Because she witnessed kind of a battle of wills between the other two, and it was very uncomfortable for her. So, and then I think one of the first ones that I had marked was how like any couple just starting out, and they usually don't have a lot of money, and then later on, when they have established themselves and they're raising their family and they've got good jobs or sources of income, and then you kind of look fondly back at how poor you were, and you remember it through a different lens. And I thought, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, things were a lot easier back when I was poor. So the next book I started reading was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. And I'm 26 pages into it so far, and I've been reading it off and on for the last week. It's like, look at how dense this text is. And it's, a very rich story. And this book is almost 500 pages. This is going to take me forever, unless, it gets to a part that's really good and I just can't put it down, and then I stay up all hours of the night reading it. But I don't have much to say about it yet, other than, how childhood is different from today to back then, because this was set in the early 1900s, and the kids would run around and look in the gutters and find any kind of little bits of scrap tin and metal and whatnot, and save it for however long and bring it to the scrap man and turn it in and get money, like pennies, little small amounts of money, and they were just happy as could be. And then they go to like the penny store, or I suppose it was the dime store back then, and get penny candy and like little cheap trinkets, and that was the highlight of their time. And I think, wow, how different from nowadays. And I remember when I was a kid, we still had penny candy, and I don't think there is such a thing anymore. But there's not much for candy stores anymore either, or the like little specialized shops, which I guess is kind of a rant for another day if I ever want to go down that rabbit hole. I just, yeah, I better just stop right now. um, a few weeks ago, I had got from the library the Elizabeth Zimmerman, I think they were called Knitting Around, DVD. It was what she had a PBS show, and her daughter were knitting stuff and showing it off, and just in general chit-chatting. And I have to request those discs again. I saw just a few of them, and I thought they were so much fun to watch, even though it was just, I suppose, like maybe what I'm doing nowadays and what other knitting podcasters are doing, except it was Elizabeth Zimmerman. And it was nice to see, something kind of simple, but it was still so elegant. I think the one I had watched was the square pie shawl, or pie shawl on a square, and her and her daughter took two different approaches to it, and they're both lovely, and just, no nonsense wool, white wool, and they were great. And of course the one, the lace yarn cake that one of them was knitting off was like this 12-inch circle cake, like the size of a pizza. I can't imagine trying to haul anything like that around. Let's see. The chickens, I just opened the coop for them a little bit ago. The girls, the little baby girls, have got a really bad habit of dropping eggs wherever they are now. There was, I think Monday, I opened up the coop and stepped in and heard just this sickening crack. And it was an egg that one of them had just dropped right in front of the door. So they're going around all over in the coop and just laying them wherever. They haven't figured out to go into the nesting box yet, and apparently aren't watching the big girls to learn by example. And then two, they have the tendency to go in the backwoods, and I never know where they are, because they're laying their eggs somewhere out there, and I have no idea where. They just randomly, they start doing their egg song, and then they come out. And I try to find and scour the area that I think they might have been in, and I can't find anything. And they're little brats. So with leaving them in the coop until I get home from work, or just a little bit before that, the egg production has increased dramatically. Imagine that. And the bunnies, Mama Brahma and the babies are doing good. I thought Mama was just ready to be done with being staying with the chicks, but she is staying with them, and she's guiding them back into the little coop and pen every night. Although when I go out there in the morning to check their food and water, they're all standing at the doorway of the pen, and they are ready to come out, and they want out now. But can't do that if I'm not going to be home, so they get a little pouty. And then speaking of pouty, with bunnies, Everybody's getting along well. There's not much fighting that I can see, but every time I go out to the hutch and check the food and the water, and I lean in there and I kind of pet whoever is willing to run up to me, which is usually Pfeffer and Shadow now, although Shadow's kind of running around all over. She's getting a little skitty, I guess, even though she is fine with being caught, and she'll come up to you and you can grab her and that's fine. She's okay with that. And then Pfeffer just wants to sniff you and nibble on anything that might be hanging off your jacket or anything. But Haas, he hangs out towards the back of the hutch, which I can't remember how well you can see. Okay. This area right here is like the enclosure, and then the rest of the hutch right here is open. It's got hardware cloth on it, so they get plenty of sun and air and everything. So he hangs out closer to the enclosure and he'll sit there with his back to you, and then he'll kind of look around, and if a rabbit can pout, he's pouting, and I have no idea why he's pouting. But he's getting better about coming up to you a little bit, where before he didn't want anything to do with you at all. You couldn't catch him or anything, even if he had a carrot or something that he really wanted. Yeah, but now he's kind of coming up and letting you catch him or pet him. So I don't know, maybe he's feeling left out, because I think Pfeffer and Shadow are getting along really well. Let's see, and then in the kitchen, not a whole lot has been going on. Nothing really fantastic, although last night I made a quiche, my first one in a really long time, and it turned out good. I don't have a recipe for quiche. I just kind of have to remember what the egg to dairy ratio is, and I usually end up having to look that up somewhere. And then that's my bread maker. I have a batch of dough in there for cinnamon rolls for the freezer, because we ate the last of them this morning. So quiche turned out great, and it is definitely soup weather now. I have a batch of vegetable beef soup sitting on the stove, and my husband's been eating that every day for lunch. And yeah, nothing really going on. The weather I mentioned earlier has changed dramatically. Maybe. It's just kind of been a little harsher than what it was before. Although the gales of November arrived early. I stopped out at the Point on Wednesday afternoon after work to try and take video of the lake. And I know video doesn't do it justice, and I know people on Facebook have been sharing videos of just how awing the lake can be when it gets really going thanks to a storm. I think Wednesday, the high, can't remember exactly what the highest wind was. It was either 55 or 85, and we had like 12 to 14 foot waves on the lake. That sounds like Weeping Bell. Or one of the girls snuck into the garage and laid an egg on the battery bank. Hard to say. So I will try to put the video in either at the end of this, or maybe I'll try to insert it right around about here. I seem to have done an okay job last week when I inserted the video of Shadow. So we'll give that a whirl. This morning it was 28 or 29 degrees, and there had been just enough rain last night that the little bolt to the rabbit hutch was frozen shut, and I had to use a screwdriver to kind of pry it open so I could open it. And oh, the poor bunnies, their water was frozen and they were desperate for water. So I had to spend a few minutes in the house running hot water into it and getting it all thawed out. And now I'm gonna have to think of something to do for the water so it's not always freezing up on them. I suppose in a perfect world, I would have the boys haul the hutch into the big coop if it would fit in the door, but then the chickens would poo all over it. Or I can just move the rabbits into the little coop. We'll see. Which reminds me, eventually I'm going to have to get the babies over into the big coop. And I'm not sure when I'm going to do that, or maybe just grab them and throw them in. Not literally throw them in. And let's see. Anything else? No, I don't think for that stuff. I had to travel for work on Tuesday. I had to drive somewhere that was 40 to 50 minutes away from my house. So I got to enjoy a drive and see the fall colors before the wind really took off and knocked all of them down. And hunting update. My son still doesn't have a deer. Now it's getting colder, so it's going to be harder sitting in the tree stands and the deer blind. Last week I sat out with him in the deer blind, and he seemed to really appreciate having company, and I got to see firsthand how he kind of behaves in the deer blind, and actually he does really good. I probably moved around and made more noise than him, but I've always had the tendency I can sit still for only so long. And then at one point, I had glanced up because I was actually sewing something on this baby surprise jacket and Kitchener'ing the toe of one of my socks. So, go me. I looked up and I saw a bird, and my first thought was, oh my gosh, how did a chicken get all the way back here? And then I realized it's not a chicken. It's either a quail or a partridge. I'm not sure. I've never seen anything back there before, and it just kind of doot over and maybe didn't see us. Otherwise, I'm not sure if it would have been so calm as it appeared. And Sunday they heard something crashing through the woods, but neither one of them saw anything. This last weekend was the youth hunt for my state, and I heard a lot of gunshots during the day when I was out there, but I never saw any deer come through. So I really hope that there's still some deer around, because my son does want to get the deer, and he's putting in the time for it, but the deer need to do their part and come through as well. And that's it for hunting. This is one of the magnets from my chart keeper. Apparently, I need to do this. Let's see what timer are we at. Okay. Doing a little better. The thing that I had to travel for work for, the topic was about Sabbath. And I had originally wanted to do this because I know, like a lot of people, and probably moms in particular, if I'm truthful about it, we're not very good about taking time for ourselves and doing what we need to do in order to recharge our batteries so that we can take care of our families the best we can. I need to stop playing with that. I don't know if I learned a lot more than what I went in already knowing. Does that make sense? But it was a lot of stuff to think about, and the spiritual aspect of Sabbath, which I learned something new, and I know somebody who does observe Sabbath, and I haven't asked her about this yet. But the guy was saying how people who observe Sabbath, how they know when Sabbath starts. They hold up a piece of white thread, and when they can no longer tell what color the thread is, that is when Sabbath starts. And I thought, wow, that's really specific. But good, it makes sense, because I suppose way back when, not everybody had clocks, and sunset can be two different people would decide when sunset starts or when it happened, and sundown. So that was interesting, and I guess the Sabbath stuff, I will keep some of the stuff in mind, but I don't know if a lot of it I can really put into practice. I guess it was more of the educational part of Sabbath, but not here's how to take it and what you should do to, what you need to take Sabbath is when this happens. Well, I can usually tell when I need to take a vacation, but ongoing times of joyful usefulness, I'm not always good to know when to take those. But Wednesday, when I went to the point, and that's just what the locals call the beach of Lake Superior near us. Just if my phone died like a minute after I started making video of the waves and trying to just take it all in. But in those few minutes, I felt so recharged and just alive. And I thought it was funny because I was standing there, the wind's whipping all around, and I really wished I had a hat on because I have sensitive ears to the cold. But I was in a dress too, and tights, and I'm standing there on the shore of Lake Superior, and the waves coming almost all the way up to where I was standing, and I hadn't felt that refreshed in a while, and I thought, wow, this is great. And then this morning I took a walk before work, and I have felt great since then. I feel like I have a lot of energy. I'm certainly not feeling down or lethargic or anything, and I remembered that I've always felt better when I've been out in nature. Even over the summer, kayaking on the lakes for fishing, hiking on the trails, just walks around what I call the circuit near my house, and anytime I'm like outside like that, and of course that the sun's not completely oppressive or it's not bone-numbing cold, I've always felt recharged. So I need to remember that I need to do this. But I'm a mom, and I always put myself last, it seems, even when I make the effort to do certain things. And so I guess my happiness this week is nature. And if I want to be specific, is Lake Superior. Because I forget how big and inspiring that lake is. And I ended up following a truck SUV down the road, and I had pulled into a spot where there was nobody else at, and I walked out, and I forgot every time the waves, or the winds pick up and the lake gets rolling. So many people in my area make a pilgrimage out to Lake Superior to see the waves. And I was thinking about how people travel up here just to see Lake Superior. And I know there's other areas along the South Shore where people go up and check out the lake, but I think there's nothing quite like seeing Lake Superior at the headwaters, where my area, they, like, because the area is so much smaller than the rest of the lake, so everything's kind of bigger and more grand. And we've got, on the Minnesota side, there's a lot of cliffs. When you go up the North Shore, if you're heading towards Canada, I'm trying to think what else is along that way too. But it's really pretty, and I think how amazing it is to live in this area. And even though sometimes when I'm talking to my friends and they go, "Oh wow, the state park here is so pretty, and the waterfall at Patterson Park is so amazing," and it's like, yeah. And she goes, "Yeah, I know. You're kind of used to it and jaded." But every once in a while, like what happened on Wednesday, I'm reminded of how beautiful this area is. And some people have to travel so far to be able to see it, and it's a destination and an experience. And I always think, why would I need to go see like the ocean? Because I have Lake Superior. It's just as good, if not better, than anything I could travel to go see. So I guess that is all I have to say for this week. Thank you for spending this time with me. And until next time, I'd say keep on knitting, but I don't know if all of you are knitters, so just let's pull a Joe Dirt. Keep on keeping on. Bye.